On paper, this woman was one of the most powerful queens in the entire world. Isabel II, Queen of Castile, Leon, Aragon. The list of titles was insanely long, showing off the power of a global Spanish empire. She was supposed to be a living symbol of tradition and strength, here to lead her country into the future. But behind the scenes, the official story was a huge lie. This wasn't a story about a powerful queen. It was about how raw human desire can literally destroy everything. It wasn't about stability. It was about complete and utter chaos. This is the insane story of a woman who was given a crown but not a life. A queen whose desperate search for a little affection became the exact weapon her enemies used to burn her kingdom to the ground. To the world, she was Queen Isabella II of Spain, but privately she was trapped in a political marriage with a man she openly called impotent. This is the story of how a queen's hunt for love turned into the ultimate political scandal, a tool used by her enemies to destroy her reputation and bring down an entire monarchy. Her most famous complaint about her own wedding night literally says it all. What am I to say of a man who, on his wedding night, wore more lace than I did? To understand how this all went so wrong, we have to go back to the beginning. Isabel was born in 1830 into a Spain that was literally tearing itself apart. Her dad, King Ferdinand VII, was a pretty bad ruler, and he was pathologically desperate for a son. His fourth wife was his last chance. When the baby was born a girl, the entire kingdom freaked out. So, in a crazy last-ditch move, the king just changed the law. Just like that. He issued the Pragmatic Sanction, which tossed out the old rule that stopped women from taking the throne. Suddenly, his baby daughter Isabel was the heir, but in trying to save his daughter's future, he basically lit the kingdom on fire. His brother, Don Carlos, was furious. He believed he should be king, and his followers were ready to start a war over it. When the king died in 1833, Isabel was declared queen. The crazy part? She was only 3 years old. Her mom was in charge, but the kingdom immediately exploded into the First Carlist War. This was the world Isabel was born into, not a fairy tale, but a total nightmare of political violence. From the moment she existed, she wasn't a kid. She was a symbol. Her childhood was a chaotic blur of coups and conspiracies. Her own mother was kicked out and replaced by a general. Isabel grew up surrounded by power-hungry men, all trying to control the little girl who wore the crown. She had zero power. She was just a pawn in a massive political game she couldn't even understand. Then, in 1843, everything changed. After yet another uprising, the Spanish Parliament decided the best way to fix the instability was to just declare the queen old enough to rule. At just 13 years old, they handed Isabella II the entire government. A teenager with zero training in how to govern, no education, and no idea how to control the powerful people around her. Her entire reign was defined from the start by palace drama and military plots, a chaotic environment that would shape her into the impulsive queen she was destined to become. Every queen needs a king, right? But for a teenage Isabel, this wasn't about love. It was a political battle royale. The biggest powers in Europe, especially Britain and France, saw Spain as a prize. A royal marriage was a way to gain power, and both countries were scheming to get their guy on the throne. The winner? Isabel's own cousin, Francisco de Asís de Bourbon. They were double first cousins. On paper, it seemed like a good solution. In reality, it was an absolute disaster. Francisco was, by every account from the time, the worst possible husband for the young queen. Rumors that he was gay and probably impotent were the talk of Europe. People said he had a high-pitched voice and was more interested in jewelry than politics. Isabel actually had a crush on his handsome younger brother, but she had no choice. The politicians picked Francisco precisely because he was seen as weak and unlikely to have kids. This was a total scheme because it meant the throne would pass to Isabel's sister, who, in a master move, was married to the French king's son on the exact same day. On October 10th, 1846, her 16th birthday, Isabella was forced into a marriage she never wanted. The wedding was a huge public spectacle, but the wedding night was a private horror that would define her entire reign. She was so repulsed by her new husband that she let out that infamous line about him wearing more lace than she did. The marriage was a complete fake from day one. The couple lived totally separate lives. The one thing that was supposed to create stability instead created a black hole at the center of the monarchy. It left Isabel humiliated, trapped, and completely alone. She was a passionate woman denied any real affection, so she started looking for it somewhere else. It was a personal choice born from misery, but in a kingdom this fragile, the queen's private life was political dynamite, and the fuse had just been lit. Trapped in this sham marriage, Queen Isabel II refused to be a prisoner. If her duty was to accept a husband she couldn't love, her nature demanded she find affection somewhere, and she did. With a recklessness that shocked everyone, Isabel began a series of affairs that would define her entire reign. She had a ton of lovers, but one guy stood out, the handsome General Francisco Serrano. He was a military hero, 20 years older than her, and their relationship was an open secret. In 1847, just a year into her terrible marriage, the 17-year-old queen was so in love with Serrano that she demanded a divorce. Can you imagine a queen demanding a divorce back then? It was insane. The government freaked out and immediately shipped the general off to a post far away. But that was just the beginning. The affair with Serrano opened the floodgates. From then on, the queen took other lovers, like a young aristocrat who many believe was the real father of her first child. Another lover, an army captain named Enrique Puigmoltó, is who most historians believe is the father of her son and heir, Alfonso. In total, Isabel had 12 pregnancies, but only 5 of her children survived. The real father of the royal children became the biggest secret in Spain. No one believed they belonged to the king consort, Francisco de Asís. The rumors were supercharged by Francisco's own reputation. Her enemies used his alleged homosexuality as propaganda, endlessly saying the queen was immoral and her children were illegitimate. This created a totally toxic situation. Francisco, the humiliated husband, reportedly figured out how to use it to his advantage. He allegedly blackmailed the queen, demanding money and titles in exchange for his silence. In an age that demanded women be perfect, Isabel's behavior was seen as outrageous. She was impulsive, loved to party, and seemed completely unaware of her people's problems. Her affairs and the constant doubt over the royal bloodline destroyed her authority. To many, she wasn't just a bad ruler, she was a corrupt one. Her very human search for affection was becoming a national security threat, and her enemies were watching, waiting for the right moment to use her private life as their ultimate public weapon. For decades, Spain's government was a total mess, but by the late 1860s, the country was about to explode, and Queen Isabel's personal scandals were the gasoline on the fire. Her political opponents had become experts at using her reputation against her. The press had a field day. Vicious cartoons of the queen went viral, showing her as obese, immoral, and controlled by lovers. The gossip wasn't just gossip anymore, it was the #1 reason to get rid of her. Her position got weaker every year. 2 of her most powerful generals died, leaving her dangerously alone. The team against her grew stronger, with exiled leaders meeting up to plan the overthrow of the entire monarchy. The goal wasn't just to change the government, it was to get rid of the queen herself. And get this, the guy leading this revolutionary movement, None other than General Francisco Serrano, the man who had once been the great love of her life. In a final insane twist, the man she had once been willing to risk her crown for was now coming to take it by force. In September 1868, while the Queen was on vacation, the revolution began. It spread like wildfire. The Queen's army was crushed at the Battle of Alcolia. With the military gone and the country against her, it was over. 2 days later, Isabella II, who had been queen since she was 3, fled across the border into France. The glorious revolution had won. Her chaotic 35-year reign was finished. The fall of Isabel II wasn't caused by a single affair. It was the result of decades of instability. But it was her messy, public search for love that gave her enemies the perfect story of an unfit queen who had lost her right to rule. The story of Isabel II is one of the craziest we've ever covered, and it proves how the private lives of public figures can literally change history. If you want more insane stories like this one, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You have no idea what we're investigating next, and you are not going to want to miss it. So what happened to Isabel? She settled in Paris for the rest of her life, and in a super weird twist, her estranged husband, Francisco, also lived in France, and they actually became friends. They had separated on good terms and would even see each other sometimes. But her political life was over. In 1870, she officially gave up her claim to the throne for her son, Alfonso, hoping to keep the crown in the family. Spain, meanwhile, went through years of chaos. Eventually, the country got tired of the instability, and in 1874, they did something crazy. They restored the monarchy. Isabel's son was crowned King Alfonso XII. Isabel was allowed to visit Spain sometimes, but she was banned from ever having political influence again. She died in Paris in 1904, a queen without a kingdom. So what do we make of Isabel II? Was she a tragic victim, a girl thrown into a political nightmare and forced into a horrible marriage? Or was she just what her enemies said, an irresponsible ruler whose personal flaws doomed her from the start? The truth is, it's complicated. Her reign was a total mess, but it was also a time when Spain itself was going through a painful transition. She was a woman with immense privilege, but very little actual power, a queen in name, but a pawn in the hands of others. Her story is a cautionary tale about the insane weight of a crown and the very human tragedy of a woman who, in her flawed and desperate search for a little happiness, ended up losing everything.